Good afternoon. A 23-year-old man has been arrested in connection with a series of unprovoked stabbings in the city.
The stabbings happened between March 23rd and 29th. Police say none of the victims knew their attacker. CTV's Janice Golding's been following this story and joins us live now with more. Janice.
Hi, Nathan. Yes, Toronto police have made an arrest in a series of brutal stabbings that took place in the city's downtown core last week. Now, a particular concern, say police, is that all of the attacks appear to happen randomly. Now, police say the first incident happened just before midnight on March 23rd when a man who was sleeping was stabbed in the Simcoe and Bremner area. Police captured images of a man on surveillance cameras and began their search. However, later in the week, a victim was allegedly stabbed from behind in the Dan Leckie Way, Queens Quay West area. The last attack happened at King and York around 10:50 p.m. on Saturday. Two of the victims sustained serious injuries. Now, 23-year-old Duncan McKenzie of no fixed address was arrested yesterday by police who were on the lookout and charged with a long list of charges, including 2 counts of attempted murder and 3 counts of aggravated assault.
So I can tell you the one on March 23rd, it was an underhoused man that was sleeping, and obviously unprovoked, the suspect went up to him and did stab him. He was transported to hospital and treated. On March 28th, the victim was walking, and he came up from behind and then stabbed him. And then on the last one, on March 29th, the victim was at his place of work and was just out on the phone talking to somebody, and he came up from behind and stabbed him.
Now, McKenzie was expected to make a bail appearance today. However, he was not up in court this morning. By the way, Toronto police have confirmed that McKenzie was out on bail. Reporting live from Janice Golding, now back to Michelle and Nathan.
Thank you, Janice. And police are investigating a stabbing in the city's West End. Police were called to the Eglinton and Weston Road area just after 11 p.m. yesterday. They say a man was involved in a verbal altercation on a bus. He was later followed off the bus and stabbed. The victim was taken to hospital with non-life-threatening injuries. So far, police have not provided any information on possible suspects. The federal election campaign has entered its second week, and the ongoing trade war with the U.S. is expected to take center stage.
Meanwhile, new polling shows the Liberals are now widening their lead over the Conservatives. A Nanos poll for CTV and the Globe and Mail shows the Liberals leading with 43.6% support, the Conservatives in second with just over 36% support, and the NDP rounding out the top 3 at 10.5% support. The Bloc Québécois, Green Party, and People's Party of Canada round out the bottom 3.
The Conservatives were way ahead when Justin Trudeau was the leader. He resigns. Donald Trump does the attacks, the tariff attacks. Then you have the Liberal leadership. Now we have an election. Whammo, we go from a 27-point advantage for the Conservatives to, check it out, they're 7 to 8 points back of the Liberals.
And for more on the polling numbers, we are joined by CTV's Scott Hurst. Hi, Scott. And we just heard from Nick Nanos there. This has been a remarkable turnaround for the Liberals as far as the polls go. How are the Conservatives responding to this drop?
Good afternoon, Michelle. We heard from Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre just a short time ago reacting to a question about slumping poll numbers. Now, the Conservatives were making a campaign stop, announcing a national energy corridor, but are taking questions about the poll numbers. And here's what Pierre Poilievre had to say. He had to say that the message that they've been bringing to Canadians over the past couple of years, particularly when they were riding high in the polls, as you heard from Nick Nanos right there, 27-point advantage at one point of rebuilding housing, bringing back power to the paychecks, affordability, investing in Canadian industries. He says that message that they've been bringing to Canadians over the past couple of years is even more important now with the threat of Donald Trump and the tariffs that he is threatening to impose, and the more tariffs he's threatening to impose against us and other trading partners. And so even though there has been a significant drop, Pierre Poilievre says the message is more important now than ever. But we bring up those numbers once again. You show that this gap is not just closing for the Liberals, but now widening for the Liberals upwards of 8 points. And Nick Nanos specifically points out that the province of Ontario, right here, vote-rich province, where it looked like the Conservatives are really going to take a lot of those seats from the Liberals, but now it is specifically Ontario that is leading the charge in this turnaround for the Liberals. And in this province specifically, the regional data shows that, according to the Nanos tracking, the Liberals are coming in at about 48 38.5% support compared to the Conservatives at about 36.3%, and that is from the regional data from the Nanos tracking for the province of Ontario.
Now, this Nanos polling also took a look at people's preferred prime minister. What can you tell us about those numbers?
Yeah, when it comes to preferred prime minister, it also shows that the Liberals continue to gain ground right there, and Mark Carney appears to be the top choice when it comes to preferred prime minister. Now, if we look at that data set, it looks like 47% appear to be leaning towards Carney as the preferred prime minister, where Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre sits at about 33%, and NDP leader Jagmeet Singh much farther behind at under 5%. So it really is coming down to two people in this election. And of course, the message that we've been hearing from voters, the key issue in this election continues to be tariffs. And it'll be a lot of the topic this week, particular because, of course, on Wednesday is when Donald Trump plans to unleash a whole host of more tariffs, not just against Canada, but many other trading partners as well, Michelle.
CTV's Scott Hurst live for us in the CTV National Newsroom. Thank you.
Thanks, Michelle.
Still to come, the federal leaders are spread out across the province today, making their pitches to voters. We'll have the latest from the campaign trail a little later in the newscast. One person is fighting for their life in hospital following a collision in Whitby. It happened on Highway 7 at the 412. The OPP gave an update on social media.
Right now we're dealing with a motor vehicle collision involving a passenger vehicle and a straight truck. The car is wedged under the straight truck. The driver has sustained serious life-threatening injuries and has been transported to a trauma center. Highway 7 east and westbound is going to be closed for a period of time. It is unknown how long right now. We do have our reconstruction team en route to do the investigation of the collision.
4 people were taken to hospital following a house fire in Brampton yesterday afternoon. Brampton Fire posted this video to social media. The blaze happened at Marsh Marigold Drive near Sandalwood Parkway and Chinguacousy Road. 2 people were taken to hospital for smoke inhalation, while 2 others were taken as a precaution. The cause of the fire is still under investigation.
Mayor Olivia Chow helped open this year's Good Roads Conference in the city today, and she spoke about the need for collaboration when it comes to improving roads in our city and right across the country.
No one can do it on their own. Not one level of government, not just one person, one company, one department. It takes all of us coming together to dialogue, to learn, to share, which is what you're doing here. This is why I love to see representatives from across the province right here. Private sector, government officials, academics, experts. So much to learn, and we always are stronger together.
The Good Roads Conference runs through Wednesday.
Starting next month, there will be new lane closures on the Gardiner as the city continues to work on rehabilitating the expressway. The westbound lanes of the Gardiner will be reduced from 4 lanes to 3 between Park Lawn and Grand Avenue starting next Monday. The reduction will allow crews to conduct repairs on 5 bridges, which is expected to take about a year to complete. The city says this part of the project will include the same acceleration measures which allowed the first phase to finish 4 months ahead of schedule. The measures include completion incentives and allowing crews to work up to 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
A note for subway riders, there's an early nightly closure on the TTC's Line 1 this week, starting tonight and lasting through Thursday. There won't be train service between Finch and Eglinton stations from 11 p.m. onward. Shuttle buses will run instead. The closure is to accommodate track work in the area. Lawrence and North York Centre stations will be closed, but all other stations will remain open for customers to purchase fares and connect to surface routes. Now let's take a live look at the city this afternoon as we turn our attention to the weather forecast. We fared better than many this weekend in the GTA, but it was still a washout at times, not the most gorgeous weekend in the city. And now we are dealing with some gusty winds. That's never fun when you're thinking about air travel. Lindsay Morrison is here with a look at the current conditions. Lindsay, we were wondering how the weekend was going to play out with the temperatures. Would it be rain? Would it be ice? Now we know.
Yeah, it was mainly rain around the GTA, Michelle, but outside of the GTA, it was a devastating ice storm this past weekend, and we will be showing you some footage coming up. We talked about those winds. It's a big concern for the communities that did experience experience significant ice this weekend because in addition to trees and power lines that have already fallen, these strong winds at around 50 kilometers per hour could bring down even more trees and power lines because they're already weakened thanks to that heavy ice, even though a lot of that ice has now melted. Right now, the winds in Toronto are coming out of the west, gusting upwards of 40 kilometers per hour. But again, we will tap into a bit more of a northwesterly flow over the next couple of hours. We've had wet weather today. We're holding on to a chance of a few showers this afternoon. And we've got falling temperatures, so we've already reached our forecast daytime high, which was 12 earlier today. It's going to feel a lot colder than that, though, this afternoon. We're going to take you through the forecast for the week ahead as we say goodbye to March and hello to April. Some improvements for tomorrow. We'll talk all about it coming up. For now, Michelle, back to you.
Thank you, Liz. We'll still with weather-related news. Hundreds of thousands of customers remain without power following that spring ice storm over the weekend.
Orillia, Peterborough, and the district of Muskoka all declared states of emergency. CTV Sean Leathong's been following the storm cleanup and joins us live now with more. Sean.
Well, Nathan and Michelle, you can see just over my shoulder where I'm standing on this residential street in Barrie just how heavy this ice has created this damage because the tree has completely fallen and almost split in half. Now, many of the neighborhoods we're seeing here, many of the properties we're seeing in the neighborhood are all dealing with branches down that they've been cleaning up for quite some time, and it will go on for even longer.
Trees down, power out, and a massive cleanup operation underway north of the city.
Lots of noise from trees falling, branches crashing to the ground, ice exploding off the trees, the wind, the rain.
Just outside of Barrie this morning, the damage showing the toll of a two-day ice storm that has left these residents without power as they try to clean up.
Well, it got bad Friday night, and we lost a lot through the night, and then Saturday as the day went on, it just kept getting worse and worse and worse and worse till...
It was like watching a slow-motion train wreck because it happened over about 48 hours, just crash, boom, crash, boom, crash, boom.
Across the region, Hydro One says some 360,000 customers are affected, and some residents here are being told that the power may be out until Wednesday.
Just clearing off enough of the brush so that cars can get through and the school bus can get through within the next couple of days. We've called the city, but they haven't done anything yet.
States of emergency have been declared in Orillia, Muskoka, and Peterborough, where the mayor is advising residents to avoid travel while crews are working. As parts of Barrie remain without power, this is just day one of what's expected to be a weeks-long cleanup.
So one of the major concerns now is how the weather will cooperate going forward. It was very mild this morning, melting a lot of the ice and allowing people to get moving. But in the last few minutes, it started to snow once again, and the temperature seems to be dropping. Reporting live, I'm Sean Leathong. Nathan and Michelle, send it back to you.
Thank you, Sean. Ontario's Auditor General has released two special reports this morning.
The two reports are touching on a number of issues impacting the current Ford government. CTV's Queen's Park Bureau Chief Siobhan Morris joins us live with more on that. Siobhan.
Well, as you mentioned, there are two reports here. One is focused on the community-based child and youth mental health program, the other on non-municipal drinking water systems. About 3 million Ontarians get their water that way. Shelley Spence makes a point to say that 98% of the water tests that have been done over the last decade are clean. They are safe. However, she does point out that in the systems, in these private water systems, there's not enough checks being done by public health. Those agencies say they've been stretched thin. Those agencies aren't often using their enforcement powers to really crack down on bad actors. As for people using private wells, less than a third of them are taking advantage of the free water testing that is available at the provincial level. Now, when it comes to child and youth mental health, the AG notes a lack of coordination, standardization, and oversight, and that there are big swaths of the province where children and youth don't have access to certain kinds of care.
Those intensive services are available in Central Ontario and Eastern Ontario. So the North and the West do not have those intensive services.
It's 105 days for the most intensive treatment services. I mean, can you imagine being a parent or a child waiting 3 months to be able to get access to that kind of care? A lack of funding and an optimization of how we're using our funding is needed.
Between these two reports, the auditor has made 39 recommendations. The government has accepted all of them, and we'll get an update in 2 years on progress they've made to that end. Reporting live from Queen's Park, I'm Siobhan Morris. Nathan and Michelle, back to you.
Thank you, Siobhan. We return now to the federal election campaign. Liberal leader Mark Carney was in Vaughan this morning making a housing announcement.
Our goal is to double the pace of housing construction to almost 500,000 new homes every single year. Homes you can afford to buy. Homes that are more sustainable and cost less to live in. Homes made right here with Canadian ingenuity, Canadian labor, Canadian products, including mass timber.
Carney says the plan would create a new federal entity that would oversee affordable housing construction, speed up development, and provide financing to home builders. The Liberals say it would also provide more than $25 billion to pre-made home builders and $10 billion to builders of affordable homes.
Carney was also asked about the controversy surrounding his party's candidate for Markham Unionville. In January, Paul Chang told a news conference that everyone at the event could claim a Hong Kong police bounty put on a Toronto Conservative candidate by bringing him to the Chinese consulate. This morning, Carney said Chang is a person of integrity who had a terrible lapse in judgment. But the Liberal leader insists the candidate still has his confidence. His candidate has apologized, but the man who was the subject of his comments insists that is not enough.
Today, Joe Tay posted a message on X that reads, in part, Mark Carney must fire Paul Chang as the Liberal candidate for Markham Unionville. His threatening public comments were intended to intimidate me, and they must not be tolerated. Threats like these are the tradecraft of the Chinese Communist Party to interfere in Canada. The Conservative candidate for Don Valley North is among 6 overseas activists targeted by Hong Kong police. In December, they announced a bounty of about $180,000 for information leading to his arrest.
Pierre Poilievre said yesterday he finds it incredible that Carney would allow someone to be on the ballot that called for a Canadian citizen to be handed over to a foreign government on a bounty. This morning, the Conservative leader was in St. John, New Brunswick, introducing a plan to fast-track key infrastructure.
A pre-approved corridor that will allow our incredible businesses to build pipelines, transmission lines, rail lines, and countless other kinds of infrastructure that we need to break our dependence on the Americans, ship our resources to ourselves and overseas markets, bring home powerful paychecks for our country, and stand up for ourselves in a position of strength.
Poilievre says Canada needs big projects that link its regions as America threatens our country with tariffs. He says the plan is intended to make it easier to sell Canadian natural resources to new markets in the midst of the U.S. duties. Meanwhile, Jagmeet Singh is scheduled to speak soon in Victoria, BC, before traveling to Edmonton. Yesterday, the NDP leader promised, if elected, his government would offer first-time homebuyers access to low-interest loans. Bloc Québécois leader Yves-François Blanchet was in La Pocatière, Quebec this morning before heading to Rivière-du-Loup in the afternoon. The Green Party leaders are campaigning in BC and Yukon.
And for more on the election campaign, we're joined live by CTV's Colton Prale in Ottawa. Colton, with retaliatory tariffs from the U.S. looming this week, how might it affect the leaders' messaging?
Well, Nathan, you're already seeing it in how they frame their policies coming out this week. Everything is a response to Donald Trump. It's a response to the tariff threat. It's the need to build Canada inside of Canada, to give ourselves better trade options, to give ourselves better housing, to increase affordability. Whatever the pitch is, it is always in response to Donald Trump. And certainly we've been seeing that throughout the election campaign as well, but it will be heightened this week. Moreover, though, the bigger issue isn't necessarily how it's going to impact the policies, but how it's going to impact the coverage. You have 2 days this week. Wednesday, reciprocal tariffs. Thursday, auto tariffs actually coming into effect, where all of the attention from national media, from local media, from Canadians really, is going to be placed on tariffs. It's going to be placed on what happened, what's the impact, and what's it going to cost us. And that creates a golden opportunity for Mark Carney, because while he's the Liberal leader, he's also the Prime Minister. And so he's going to be the one responding to this. It's 48 hours where he is guaranteed the spotlight, and how he chooses to respond, how he directs that response is going to be incredibly influential in how he does this week as a whole. And if you take that out into a larger framing, we're talking about a 5-week campaign where ultimately, the first 2 have been very focused on Donald Trump and Donald Trump's tariff threats. And that's an issue where polling shows that the Liberals are ahead. And when it comes to choosing a prime minister who will respond to Donald Trump, again, Nanos polling shows that Mark Carney is ahead. And so for the Conservatives, this poses a challenge because, as you saw in their press conference this morning, they're talking about issues that aren't necessarily on the first front of mind for Canadians. But for the other parties, for the NDP, for the Bloc, for the Greens, it's an even bigger issue because they're not even seen as a potential response to Donald Trump. They're not included in which leader is going to stand up for Canada. And so it becomes even harder for those parties to get their ideas, their messaging, their policy proposals in front of Canadians with meaningful attention. And that's going to be the biggest way that this influences the race. It's not even about the policies. It's about who gets airtime and when, so critical in such a short race.
But with Carney having this bigger lead in the polls, do you expect to hear changes soon from the other parties?
I think what we saw from Pierre Poilievre today was very telling. And it's very in line with the frustrations that we've been hearing from Conservative sources, even from Conservative MPs to a certain extent. He has been clear that he believes the policy proposals he is pitching to Canadians are as important in the face of these Trump tariffs, and that the solutions he presented before just matter more now. At the same time, yesterday, for example, Kamal Karamali, our colleague at CTV National in Toronto, had a Conservative MP, Sue McFadden, former Mississauga councillor, say she'd like to see, or a Conservative candidate, I should say she'd like to see more talk about Donald Trump. We've been hearing that there is perhaps a schism inside the Conservative camp with regards to how they talk about Trump and the amount that they talk about Trump. And I think what you saw today was a doubling down from Poilievre that they will continue to focus on the issues where they feel they're winning and where they feel they can respond and break through to Canadians. Ultimately, the big challenge is going to be when we're talking about tariffs, what is it that Canadians are worried about? Are they worried about Donald Trump, or are they worried about the affordability issues that come alongside those? Because if it becomes about affordability issues, that may be beneficial to the Conservatives, especially if they have stuck to their messaging and been primarily on the topic of affordability throughout the campaign.
All right, we're going to find out soon enough. CTV's Colton Proyle with the latest from the campaign trail. Thank you.
Anytime.
Saskatchewan is set to become the first province without a carbon tax as it removes the industrial levy.
The move comes as federal leaders remain divided over the future of the tax. CTV's Alison Bamford has the details.
Saskatchewan's premier is ditching the province's industrial carbon tax.
Saskatchewan is now a carbon tax-free province.
An announcement earlier this week that yielded strong words from the federal energy minister, who compared Scott Moe and Pierre Poilievre to Donald Trump, saying they think big polluters should get a free pass and everyday Canadians should pay the price.
It's elbows up when it comes to defending the auto industry in Eastern Canada. But certainly when it comes to defending farmers and Saskatchewan industries that are creating wealth across this nation, it's elbows down and taxes up.
Moe says he's taking cues from federal leaders. Mark Carney eliminated the consumer carbon tax effective April 1st, and Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre has pledged to take it a step further, removing industrial carbon pricing if elected.
It's the bad idea for Canada right now. If we look at our 10 largest non-U.S. trading partners, all of them have carbon pricing systems.
Studies show industrial carbon pricing is Canada's single biggest driver to reducing emissions. Industry has spent billions in the last decade to comply.
There'd be a lot of stranded assets and sunk costs if provinces were to walk away from these systems.
But one economist says carbon pricing loses impact from a climate and business perspective if not everyone follows along.
When one person stops doing it, it very quickly cascades.
The Alberta government told CTV News it's reviewing emissions regulations and discussing a wide range of options. According to emails obtained by investigative online magazine The Narwhal, those options reportedly include killing the industrial carbon tax.
Alberta, I think, is a much higher stakes environment than Saskatchewan, or really than any other province in Canada. It's about half our industrial emissions nationally.
Typically, if a province removes its industrial tax, the federal government can step in and impose its own carbon levy. But during an election campaign, experts say there's almost no chance of that happening. Alison Bamford, CTV News, Saskatoon.
The Israeli military is indicating it could soon launch another major offensive in Rafah, issuing evacuation orders for most of the city in southern Gaza. The orders were issued during Eid al-Fitr, a Muslim holiday which marks the end of the holy month of Ramadan. Israel renewed its attacks on Gaza on March 18th, officially ending that tentative ceasefire which it had reached with Hamas in January. Talks remain ongoing between the two sides, with Israel demanding the complete return of hostages and Hamas calling for the withdrawal of all Israeli forces as part of the January ceasefire agreement.
In Bangkok, rescuers are still searching for survivors following a deadly earthquake which struck neighboring Myanmar. Thailand's prime minister visited the site of a collapsed 30-story office tower today. At least 18 people died in Bangkok, while 78 are still missing, following the magnitude 7.7 quake on Friday. Meanwhile, the death toll in Myanmar, where the quake struck, stands at more than 1,700. The country's military-led government says more than 3,400 people have been injured, and still more than 300 are missing. The World Health Organization says 3 hospitals have been destroyed and 22 partially damaged.
Marine Le Pen, the leader of France's National Rally Party, has been convicted of embezzlement and banned from seeking the presidency in 2027. Le Pen, who leads the far-right party, was found guilty of violating European Union regulations. She was the runner-up to French President Emmanuel Macron in the country's last 2 elections, with her party gaining support each time. Le Pen's lawyer says she will be appealing the ruling.
King Charles returned to public duties following a brief stay in hospital. The king was hospitalized Thursday after experiencing side effects from his cancer treatment. He's been undergoing treatment for an unspecified cancer since last February. The king has returned to Windsor Castle and is scheduled for his usual working week. Lindsay.
Well, it's a pretty gloomy day out there today, not quite as unsettled as it was over the weekend, but with temperatures falling, it might be another good day to spend some time indoors. Tomorrow brings improvements, though, just in time to welcome April. We should see the sun again, and even though it is going to be a chilly start, we'll climb to about 4 degrees in the afternoon. Here's the thing, we are in for another storm on Wednesday, and yes, this one has potential to bring even more ice to some of the areas devastated over the weekend. For us in southern Ontario, we are looking at rain, heavy at times, maybe a thunderstorm as well. We're going to take you through the forecast for the week ahead. You're watching CTV News at noon, and we'll be right back.
All right, to the forecast. A bit of rain this morning. We had lots of rain over the weekend, but I feel like we were spared the worst of it.
We so fortunate. Although I did see, like in my neighborhood, definitely some little branches scattered, but nothing in the way as, you know, the folks outside of the city. It could have been a lot worse for us. It was gloomy. I think we're all hoping to see that real spring weather where you get out and enjoy and breathe in the air and love it.
Well, interestingly enough, we do have some spring weather on the way for this week, but the warm temperatures will come with maybe a little bit of active weather, and then the sunshine comes with some cooler conditions, but I think we'll take it, right? Let's get to your forecast. Weather is brought to you by the Presler Law Firm Injury Lawyers. You don't pay unless they win. Yes, we were spared here in the GTA, but boy, oh boy, what a different story in other parts of the province. I have family north of Barrie. I also have family north of Peterborough, and both of those areas significantly impacted by this. You're seeing some footage from Barrie, Ontario yesterday. Those trees covered in ice, and of course, branches, power lines, and entire trees coming crashing to the ground. And now the concern today, not so much the ice anymore on the trees. A lot of that has in fact melted, but now we've got strong winds, and that would be a concern anyway. But in many cases, the ice has weakened a lot of the branches on those trees. So would not be surprised to hear of more property damage in some areas for today. And yes, we do have more active weather on the way for Wednesday. Winds right now are coming out of the west. We're going to tap into a bit more of a northwesterly flow as the day goes on. That sends our temperature tumbling. And again, winds are going to be gusting to about 50 kilometers per hour. Just a little preview as we make our way into Wednesday. Look at these peak wind gusts around Hamilton and Niagara, upwards of 80 kilometers per hour. Let's talk about what's in store when it comes to that system in just a moment. But here's the special weather statement in place. Again, this is north end of the GTA, extending into, once again, Peterborough Peterborough, the Kawarthas, Kingston, Prince Edward County, and then north toward Owen Sound and Perry Sound. We're saying goodbye to this area of low pressure. We're going to have high pressure at play for the next day here, which means a return to some sun for tomorrow. That will be welcomed. But let me set the forecast radar in motion here just to show you the concern for Wednesday. There's your Tuesday afternoon. Beautiful. Then into Wednesday, cloud cover increases. We might begin with a little bit of a brief period of light snow in the GTA. And then look at that. Once again, potential for freezing rain, ice accretion around the GTA. This is likely to be rainfall once more. But look at your Wednesday night. Likely some thunderstorm activity as the front rolls through. And then Thursday, it's actually going to be quite mild. We'll talk about that next. Heavy rain in the forecast, especially areas north of us. Maybe flood-worthy rainfall. And check out Orillia. Once again, maybe 13 millimeters of ice accretion. Again, that's on top of what has already fallen, close to 20 millimeters in places like Orillia and Peterborough. Temperature-wise right now, we are at 7 degrees. We're going to fall to about 4 later this afternoon. Tonight, -2 for the low. Tomorrow's highs are going to be not bad, slightly below seasonal. Here is the 7-day forecast. Wednesday, we're at 6 degrees after 4 on Tuesday. Check out Thursday, a high of 18 degrees and then some sunshine with seasonal value of about 12 for your Friday. That's the weather for now. Nathan, over to you.
All right, not too bad. Thank you, Lindsay. The Blue Jays are set to begin a series with the Washington Nationals tonight.
Single into first.
Heineman gets into one. Pulls it to left, and it's gone.
The Jays are coming off a 3-1 win over the Baltimore Orioles yesterday. The victory saw the team split its series with the Orioles going 2-2 in the first 4 games of the season. First pitch for tonight's game against Washington is set for shortly after 7 p.m. at Rogers Center.
Still to come on CTV News at noon, new research suggests bats are much smarter than we think. We'll have more on the data when we return.
A new study shows that bats are smarter than we realize.
For more, we're joined by CTV science and tech specialist Dan Riskin. And Dan, you have a PhD in none other than bats.
I do.
So I'm wondering if you're even at all surprised by this.
I was surprised by this. Bats do all kinds of smart things, but this is like a social smarts, which is something that hasn't been tested very much. Basically, they did this experiment where they had a bunch of bats, and then, you know, sometimes bats leave and sometimes bats come back, and sometimes different bats are home at different times, and they would play the recording from around the corner of a bat that was in trouble. And it was a bat, it was saying, hey, help, help, I've been caught. And then the bats would go and check it out to see what was happening. But what they found in the study is if I played the call of a bat that was home, the bats would be like, I can see the bat whose voice that is right here. Like if I hear Michelle around the corner, but I'm looking at Michelle, I'm not going to look. What is that? I don't even know what that is. And so they're smart enough to remember who's who, recognize the different voices, and put 2 and 2 together to say, I'm not going to fall for your research trick, researcher. So I don't know. It's charming. It's neat. They have these complex lives that we just barely understand, and they're just so cute.
Well, it is amazing that they recognize voices and I guess other bats.
Yeah, exactly, of different individuals that they know. And not only do they recognize that there are different voices, but they recognize by vision or something, or maybe smell, or maybe echolocation, this bat that I know here is the bat that I hear over there. So like, Nathan, I know you by your face, I know you by your voice, and I can put those together, so if I hear your voice, I know what face that goes with. That's what these bats are doing.
All right, so there's a new buzzword gaining traction in psychology research called boomer-ask. What does that mean?
Boomer-ask. Don't be a boomer-asker. And for once, this isn't about boomers. This is about boomerangs. A normal question, I ask you a question like, how was your weekend? I'm waiting for an answer from you.
Yeah, it was great. How was yours? Right.
Yeah, it was lovely. Thank you for asking. A boomer-ask is if I say, how was your weekend? Mine was awesome. Let me tell you what I did. And then you go on and on. You weren't really passing to the other person. You were passing to yourself. It was a boomerang. So these boomer-ask, this technique, researchers got into it where they had people, either they were talking about neutral things or things that make them mad or things that they were happy about. Whatever it was, the person that was being spoken to by the boomer asker really did not like it. They found the person less sincere, and they really didn't think the person was interested in what they had to say. So as a technique in conversation, you should, watch yourself. Make sure that if you're asking a question, you're actually trying to get the answer from the other person because you genuinely want to know what they have to say. Don't use it as a way to sort of open the can of worms. If you want to talk about your weekend, just say, "Can I tell you about my weekend? It was kind of awesome," and then go from there.
Good advice.
I bet you people don't even realize they're doing it.
Right?
Okay, we want to get this in, talking about some sidewalk science, and apparently some crosswalks are better than others, or what's this all about?
Yeah. So this is like this thing where if you're at a crosswalk and you're part of a crowd and you're waiting for the light, and then the light changes, but there's a huge crowd on the other side, and then the two crowds go towards each other, and then magically you just go right through each other, like there's no friction at all. You've been there, right? You just form these columns and you go right past each other. But other times you're in a crowded place and everybody's stopping and going around each other, and it doesn't work. And researchers have figured out what the magic is. It's whether the crowd's directions are aligned well or not. So if the two groups are trying to pass each other and there's not a big angle between them, they'll naturally form these columns and pass very easily. But if the angle is greater than 13 degrees, they figured this out mathematically, and they tested it. If it's more than 13 degrees, those angles make it so that people can't pass very easily, and that's when you get people stopping and stuff. And so that's why when you're at Union Station, if you're going down a hallway, it just seems to work, but you get to those big open areas, and all of a sudden you're like stopping and going around people. It's because the angles have all opened up.
Fascinating.
I know.
Always something. All right, CTV Science and Tech Specialist Dan Riskin, thank you.
Thank you.
Take care.
Well, to other news, Snow White wasn't able to hold on to her crown at the weekend box office.
Play. Get him.
Jason Statham's action flick, A Working Man, debuted with over $15 million U.S. in ticket sales across North America. Disney's live-action adaptation of Snow White fell 66% from its first weekend to $14.2 million. The Chosen Last Supper, a screening of the TV show, came in third with $11.5 million. And you are watching CTV News at noon. Keep it here. We'll have more news after the break. Stay with us.
Get Toronto's top stories, breaking news alerts, and watch live. Download the CTV News app.
The Juno Awards were handed out in Vancouver last night, and a major theme of the night was Canadian pride. For more, we're joined live by Sam East, host of 99.9 Virgin Radio. She has a weekly segment, and she joins us weekly for a segment we like to call Chronically Online. Sam, great to see you. Is it Monday already? Wow.
I know,
the weeks
right?
are flying by. Let's talk about Michael Bublé, and he took a particularly patriotic stance as the host of the Junos.
Yeah, he did a great job, and he did not hold back from showing emotion in this opening monologue right here.
We're one of a kind. We are beautiful. We are the greatest nation on earth. And we are not for sale.
Yeah, he looked like he was on the verge of tears. There are a lot of people commenting online about how impassioned he was and how important it was for him to use this moment and this platform to send out a message.
Absolutely. And he, he's a big star now, and obviously probably in the States a lot, but it's kind of, he's one of these people who certainly hasn't forgotten where he's from, which is really nice. And yeah, you can tell, probably emotional. It's probably a weird time for him, especially being with, Americans, and we're supposedly friends, and all this is going on.
Yeah, he made a point to say, I am homegrown and I never left, and, Canada through and through.
Also from the Junos last night, Sum 41, they performed together, Ajax Own, for the last time as part of the show.
Yeah, the band has been together for almost 30 years now, and they have been alluding to the fact that this is the end is near, and they had a full-on last performance a couple months ago, but this was truly, truly their last performance here at the Junos.
Tell me, am I insane? Is this where we belong? Is it pleasure or pain that we're still hanging on? Going out of my head, you know true love is there, but what you said got me hanging on.
As a millennial, I feel nostalgic watching this because this is one of the Canadian bands that defined growing up here in Toronto. And so bittersweet to see them. Clearly, they still got it.
Yeah.
Really, very much so, but bittersweet to say the least.
Yeah, definitely fun to see them rock out like that. And also, we should note a change.org petition has been launched to demand Amazon remove 51st state merchandise. This is interesting.
It is, yeah. Somebody from Thornbury, Ontario took it upon themselves to create a change.org petition demanding that Amazon remove merchandise that says 51st states. Among that, lots of calls for how this is a threat against our democracy, and it shouldn't be something that is promoted on such a massive platform as Amazon. It says in the change.org petition, a profound sense of betrayal by the U.S. president to try to force us to become the 51st state through submission, not permission. And as it stands, over 56,000 signatures. So clearly there's a lot of people who are on board with taking this merch down.
It also makes you wonder what the market is, how many people are actually buying this stuff up. There's everything on Amazon, but yeah, I mean, I don't know. Don't you feel like maybe a lot of our friends below the border aren't buying into this either?
You know, from the friends, like you said, across the border that I know and love, they're not okay with this. And a lot of the comment sections, if you look under these posts, say things with the sentiment of, American here, but I don't support this bullying. And so hopefully these sales on this Amazon merch isn't doing too well and they'll be able to take it down soon.
No, we know they won't have a big market for this here in Canada, that's for sure. Sammy, it's great to chat with you on this Monday. And remember, everybody at home, you can hear her on 99.9 Virgin on weekdays from 2 to 5 p.m. Have a great show today.
Thanks, Michelle. Have a good one.
Alberta's government is ending the use of photo radar on provincial highways. Starting tomorrow, photo radar will be restricted to school, playground, and construction zones. The Alberta government says the province has the most automated traffic enforcement sites in Canada, but claims there's little evidence that they improve safety. Municipalities can apply for exemptions in high collision locations. Coming up, a high school math teacher who performed online during the pandemic is now taking the stage in person. It's all part of an effort to raise money for mental health support. Stay with us. During the pandemic, a high school math teacher in Quebec shared his love of music by taking requests and performing online.
5 years later, he's now performing in person to raise money for mental health support. CTV's Denise Roberts has the story.
Like many during the COVID lockdown, Matthew Nardoza had to learn to improvise. He had a 5-year-old and suddenly a lot of time on his hands.
I was trying to come up with different ways to keep him occupied, and one way was, let's try and do music every day.
Word spread among parents, and he decided to share his music live on Facebook.
Why not create a space, a community, so to speak, that people can tune in and they can interact with me, send me requests, and because I play music by ear mostly, they can send me requests and I could play the song and we just have a fun time together online.
Though Nardoza teaches math, music has always been in the background of his life. He says his COVID concerts helped him and others find community in a time of isolation. When the world reopened, the concerts ended, but Nardoza says he always wanted to have one last sing-along. So he organized a concert to coincide with the 5th anniversary of the pandemic. This time in person with some backup and a purpose to stand with others with mental health struggles.
As teachers, we've seen the after effects of the pandemic and the lockdowns and all those things that happened. So I felt it was important to contribute towards something that can help.
Donations were taken to support AmCal, a charity that helps families in the West Island. Since the pandemic, Lisa Felici says demand for services has skyrocketed.
We have gone from 0 to 1,000 in calls. People need help. They just need people to listen to them as well.
She says it's important to let people know they're not alone.
That's just knowing that there's somebody on the other side and are going through the same thing, but yet being together, strength in numbers.
That's what Nardoza says he found too, on screen and in person.
Music's a way to have hope for the future, to reflect on your past, and to be in the present.
And get through a pandemic. Denise Roberts, CTV News.
Wow, well, we will be singing a tune of spring this week weather-wise, because when you look at the forecast, it's the roller coaster. It's warm and then not, and then sunny and then rainy, and we're glad you're here to walk us through it.
Well, we like to call it the swings of spring, because one minute it certainly feels a lot more like winter, and then the next you're kind of enjoying the weather, and that is likely to happen for us here locally through the rest of this week. But before we talk about that, I just want to bring you an update from Environment Canada on some of the ice accretion that happened over the weekend. Lindsay, Ontario, the big winner at 25 millimeters, but Peterborough and Orillia, where there are states of emergency in effect right now, also about 20 millimeters of ice as well. And that's why this special weather statement is in place. These winds aren't as powerful as some that we've seen, about 50 kilometers per hour, but again, likely to bring down more in the way of tree limbs and power lines as a result of that ice coating of those areas significantly. Tonight in Toronto, we're dropping to a low near -2 degrees. Tomorrow is actually a bright and sunny day, so we can look forward to that. It is going to be a little bit cool. 4 is our forecast daytime high. Normal this time of year is now closer to 8. Let's take you through the 7-day forecast. Thursday is actually going to be quite mild, 18 for the high. Friday is a decent looking day with sunshine and a temperature around 12. But let's bring it back to Wednesday. We're in for another round of active weather, likely rain and thunderstorms for us, along with some very strong winds. But some of those areas impacted over the weekend, Nathan and Michelle, likely to get even more in the way of ice once again. Back to you.
Good to know. Thank you, Lindsay. And that is CTV News at noon. Remember, you can get Toronto's breaking news all day long on CP24 and at ctvnewstoronto.ca.
For Lindsay Morrison and the whole team here at CTV News, have a pleasant afternoon. I'm Michelle Dubé.
And I'm Nathan Downer. Be sure to join us later for CTV News at 5 and 6. Have a great afternoon.